Marcus Simmons stares at the ornate doors of the Romulan High Council chamber, acutely aware of the weight of humanity's future resting on his shoulders. As Earth's first ambassador to this enigmatic alien race, he knows his next steps will shape interstellar relations for generations to come. The doors swing open, revealing a cavernous hall adorned with intricate tapestries and glowing crystals. The Romulan High Council, an imposing group of stern-faced aliens, sits in a semicircle at the far end. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, fix on Marcus as he strides forward. From the center of the council, a figure rises. Xena, the lead negotiator, steps down from the dais. Her movements are fluid, almost predatory as she approaches. Marcus feels his breath catch in his throat. Xena is strikingly beautiful, her features a mesmerizing blend of alien and familiar. "Welcome, Ambassador Simmons," Xena says, her voice a melodious purr. "We've long awaited this moment." As they exchange formal greetings, Marcus notices Xena's gaze repeatedly dropping to his lower body. Her eyes linger on his crotch, a flicker of curiosity evident in their depths. He shifts uncomfortably, unsure how to interpret her interest. The negotiations begin, and Marcus presents Earth's proposal for an alliance. The council listens intently, their expressions unreadable. When he finishes, an older Romulan leans forward, his face set in a scowl. "We require more," the elder states. "Access to your advanced technology. Without it, there can be no alliance." Marcus tenses. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Earth's non-interference policies are clear." The chamber erupts in angry murmurs. The Romulans' voices rise, their demands becoming increasingly aggressive. Marcus stands his ground, refusing to budge on Earth's principles despite the mounting pressure. Just as the situation threatens to spiral out of control, Xena intervenes. She raises a hand, silencing the council with a single gesture. "Perhaps," she says, her eyes locked on Marcus, "we should explore alternative solutions." She proposes a private meeting with Marcus to discuss the matter further. The council reluctantly agrees, their displeasure evident in their tightened jaw muscles and narrowed eyes. Xena leads Marcus from the chamber, guiding him through winding corridors to a secluded room. As the door closes behind them, the atmosphere shifts palpably. Xena's professional demeanor melts away, replaced by something more primal. She circles Marcus, her eyes roaming his body with unconcealed interest. "Human physiology fascinates me," she purrs, "particularly male anatomy. You're so different from Romulan males." Marcus swallows hard, his heart racing. "Ambassador Xena, I'm not sure this is appropriate." She silences him with a finger to his lips. In Romulan culture, physical compatibility is crucial for forging alliances. Her hand trails down his chest, coming to rest at his waist. "Perhaps if we were to explore our differences, we might find a path to agreement." Marcus feels desire warring with his sense of duty. He knows this encounter could either secure a vital alliance for Earth or destroy everything if handled poorly. The fate of humanity's standing in the galactic community hangs in the balance. Xena leans in close, her breath hot against his ear. "Human," she whispers, her voice thick with desire. "Let me play with that toy between your legs." Her hand brushes against his crotch, igniting a fire in his veins. Marcus stands frozen, caught between temptation and responsibility. The next move is his, and the consequences will echo across the stars. Marcus took a deep breath, his mind racing with the potential consequences of his next action. The fate of Earth's alliance with the Romulans hung in the balance, and he knew his decision would ripple across the stars. With a mix of trepidation and persistence, he made his choice. "Ambassador Xena," he said, his voice low and steady, "I'm willing to explore this cultural exchange, but we must establish clear boundaries and expectations." Xena's eyes lit up with triumph and desire. "Of course, human, follow me." She led Marcus through a series of winding corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. They arrived at an ornate door, which slid open to reveal Xena's personal quarters. The room was a testament to Romulan opulence, filled with strange artifacts and pulsing with advanced technology. As the door closed behind them, Xena activated a device on her wrist. A faint shimmer rippled through the air. Privacy field, she explained. What happens here stays here. Without further preamble, Xena began to undress. Marcus watched, mesmerized, as her alien physiology was revealed. Her skin had a faint metallic sheen, and patterns of bioluminescence danced across her body. Realizing he was staring, Marcus hastily began to remove his own clothes. Xena's gaze locked onto his exposed genitals, her eyes widening with fascination. She approached him slowly, her fingers outstretched. "May I?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded, suppressing a shiver as her cool fingers traced the contours of his body. She explored every inch of him, paying particular attention to his genitals. Her touch was clinical at first, but grew increasingly sensual as her exploration continued. "Fascinating," she murmured. "So different from Romulan males. Come, let us continue this examination more comfortably." She guided him to a large ornate bed that dominated one side of the room. As they lay down together, Marcus felt a surge of nervousness. This was uncharted territory, both personally and diplomatically. Xena seemed to sense his hesitation. "Relax, human," she purred. "Let me show you how Romulans forge alliances." Her hands resumed their exploration, focusing intently on his genitals. "This toy of yours," she said, her voice thick with desire. "I want to know everything about it." Marcus gasped as she began to stimulate him, her alien techniques both strange and intensely pleasurable. He rallied his thoughts, reminding himself that this was as much a diplomatic mission as it was a physical encounter. As Xena worked her magic, Marcus began his own exploration. He quickly discovered that Romulan erogenous zones were quite different from human ones. The patterns of bioluminescence on her skin seemed to be particularly sensitive, glowing brighter wherever he touched. "Yes," Xena hissed as he traced a glowing pattern on her hip. "There. Romulan pleasure centers are tied to our bioluminescence." Marcus filed this information away, recognizing its potential value for future negotiations. He focused his attention on the areas that made Xena's skin glow the brightest, eliciting increasingly passionate responses from the alien negotiator. As their encounter intensified, Xena began to share insights about Romulan culture and physiology. Between gasps and moans, she explained the importance of physical compatibility in Romulan alliances, the intricacies of their reproductive biology, and the role of bioluminescence in their society. Marcus listened attentively, even as his body burned with pleasure. He recognized the rare opportunity this encounter presented, not just for personal gratification, but for gaining a deeper understanding of Romulan culture. Their bodies moved together in an alien rhythm, a dance of diplomacy and desire. Xena's skin glowed brighter and brighter, bathing the room in an otherworldly light. Marcus felt himself approaching the edge of ecstasy, his breath coming in short gasps. Suddenly, a piercing alarm shattered the moment. The privacy field flickered and died, and a holographic projection materialized in the center of the room. A stern-faced Romulan appeared, his uniform marking him as a high-ranking military officer. "This is Admiral Vox," the projection announced. "We are under attack by the Kzinti. All personnel to battle stations immediately." Xena leapt from the bed, her professional demeanor snapping back into place despite her nudity. "We must go," she said, tossing Marcus his clothes. "The Kzinti are a savage species. If they've launched an attack, the situation is dire." As they hurriedly dressed, Xena pulled Marcus close. "What we shared here," she whispered, her breath hot against his ear. "It has convinced me. I will support an alliance with Earth. Regardless of this crisis, I will use my influence with the High Council to secure favorable terms for your people." Marcus nodded, his pupils dilating from the sudden shift in circumstances. As they rushed from the room, alarms blaring and Romulans running to defensive positions, he realized that the diplomatic landscape had changed dramatically in the span of a few hours. He steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of human-Romulan relations now rested on his ability to navigate not only the aftermath of his intimate encounter with Xena, but also the looming threat of an interstellar conflict. As they raced towards the command center, Marcus knew that his next actions would be crucial in shaping the future of Earth's place in the galaxy. Marcus's heart pounded as he and Xena raced through the corridors of the Romulan complex. Alarms blared, their shrill tones mixing with the sounds of hurried footsteps and shouted orders. The sudden shift from intimate encounter to imminent crisis left Marcus's head spinning, but he forced himself to focus on the task at hand. They burst into the central command center, a vast room filled with holographic displays and bustling with activity. At its center stood Admiral Vox, his stern face a mask of concentration as he barked orders to his subordinates. The Admiral's eyes narrowed as they fell on Marcus, suspicion evident in his gaze. "Ambassador Xena," Vox acknowledged, his voice clipped. "I see you've brought the human." Xena stepped forward, her posture radiating authority despite her recent dishabille. "Ambassador Simmons has offered Earth's assistance in this crisis, Admiral. I believe we should hear him out." Vox's fist tight, but he nodded curtly. "Very well. What do you propose, human?" Marcus took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. "Earth has developed advanced cloaking technology that could give us an edge against the Xinti. If you'll allow me, I can modify your ships to use this technology, potentially turning the tide of the battle." The Admiral's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of interest breaking through his stern demeanor. "And how do we know this isn't some ploy to sabotage our defenses?" Before Marcus could respond, Xena intervened. "I can vouch for Ambassador Simmons's trustworthiness, Admiral. Our discussions have convinced me of humanity's sincerity in seeking an alliance." Marcus felt heat rise to his cheeks at Xena's words, memories of their recent encounter flashing through his mind. He pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the matter at hand. After a tense moment, Vox nodded. "Very well. Ambassador Simmons, you will oversee the installation of this cloaking technology on our flagship. Ambassador Xena will supervise your work. But be warned, human, any hint of deception, and you'll find yourself in the coldest, darkest cell on Romulus." "Understood, Admiral," Marcus replied, relieved at the opportunity to help. As they made their way to the flagship, Marcus couldn't help but notice the meaningful glances Xena kept throwing his way. The air between them crackled with undetermination tension, their earlier intimacy lending a charged atmosphere to their interactions. Once aboard the flagship, Marcus set to work immediately. He pulled open panels, rerouted power systems, and integrated Earth's cloaking technology with the Romulan systems. Xena assisted him, their bodies often brushing against each other in the cramped spaces of the ship's interior. "Your technology is impressive," Xena murmured as they worked side by side. "Almost as impressive as your other attributes." Marcus fumbled with a coupling, nearly dropping it at Xena's words. He cleared his throat, trying to maintain his composure. "Thank you, Ambassador. Your ship's systems are quite remarkable as well. The integration is proceeding faster than I expected." As they worked, Marcus noticed the curious glances and whispers from the Romulan crew. It was clear that his presence and his closeness with Xena was a source of much speculation. Time seemed to fly as Marcus raced to complete the modifications. The long-range scanners showed the Kzinti fleet drawing ever closer, their warships a looming threat on the holographic displays. "Marcus," Xena said softly as they finished installing the last component, "there's something you should know about Romulan physiology." He looked up, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" "Romulan females enter a state of heightened arousal during times of danger," she explained. Her eyes locked on his. "It's an evolutionary trait, ensuring our species' survival in times of crisis." Marcus swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of Xena's proximity and the danger they faced. "That's fascinating," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. With a final adjustment, the cloaking device hummed to life. Marcus quickly transmitted the necessary data to the other ships in the Romulan fleet, allowing them to activate their own cloaking devices. As they made their way to the bridge, Marcus could feel the anticipation building. The Kzinti fleet was now visible to the naked eye, their ships menacing silhouettes against the star-studded backdrop of space. Admiral Vox stood at the center of the bridge, his posture rigid as he surveyed the approaching enemy. "Activate cloaking devices," he ordered, his voice echoing through the ship. Marcus held his breath as the cloaking technology engaged. On the screen, he watched as the Romulan ships shimmered and vanished, becoming invisible to both eyes and sensors. Vox turned to Marcus, a hint of approval in his eyes. "It seems your technology works, human. Now, let's see how it fares in battle." As the invisible Romulan fleet moved into attack formation, Marcus found himself working alongside Xena at a tactical station. Their hands brushed as they input commands, each touch sending a jolt of electricity through him. The Kzinti ships entered the system, unaware of the ambush that awaited them. Marcus could feel the tension on the bridge, the collective breath held as they waited for the order to attack. Suddenly, Xena's hand found his under the console. She squeezed it briefly, the gesture conveying both reassurance and something more. Marcus met her gaze, seeing the mixture of anticipation and desire in her eyes. As Vox opened his mouth to give the attack order, Marcus steeled himself for what was to come. This battle would not only test the effectiveness of Earth's technology, but also the strength of the fledgling alliance between humans and Romulans. And for Marcus personally, it would be a trial by fire, his first taste of interstellar combat and a chance to prove himself to both his own people and his new Romulan allies. The moment stretched, taut with possibility and danger. Marcus's fingers hovered over the controls, ready to unleash Earth's technology against the Kzinti threat. Whatever happened next would shape the future of intergalactic relations for years to come. With a deep breath, Marcus activated the weapon systems, ready to unleash Earth's technology against the Kzinti threat. "Fire at will," Admiral Vox commanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge. The cloaked Romulan ships sprang into action, their weapons blazing against the unsuspecting Kzinti warships. Marcus watched in awe as the display screen lit up with explosions, the element of surprise giving them a significant advantage. He and Xena worked in perfect synchronization, coordinating the assault with a level of efficiency that surprised even the seasoned Romulan crew. "Target their propulsion systems," Xena suggested, her fingers flying over the controls. Marcus nodded, adjusting their aim accordingly. The Kzinti ships, caught off guard by the invisible assault, struggled to mount an effective defense. For a moment, it seemed as though victory was within reach, but the Kzinti were not easily defeated. As Marcus watched, the enemy ships began to change formation, spreading out in a wide pattern. "They're adapting," he muttered, a sense of unease growing in his gut. Suddenly, a massive energy net erupted from the Kzinti fleet, sweeping through space like a glowing web. As it passed over the cloaked Romulan ships, their outlines shimmered into view, exposed by the energy field. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vox bellowed, but it was too late. The Kzinti, now able to see their targets, opened fire with a vengeance. The bridge rocked as a direct hit struck the flagship. Sparks flew from consoles, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. Marcus clung to his station, his heart pounding as alarms blared throughout the ship. "Cloaking device is offline," a technician shouted over the chaos. Admiral Vox's face hardened. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Prepare for—" "Sir?" Marcus interrupted, an idea forming in his mind. "Let me try to repair the cloaking device. If we can get it back online, we might still have a chance." Vox hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he considered the human's offer. Before he could respond, Xena stepped forward. "I'll assist him," she declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. The Admiral's eyes sharp, but he nodded curtly. "Go, but if you fail, the consequences will be severe." Marcus and Xena raced through the corridors of the ship, dodging debris and panicked crew members. They reached the engineering section just as another hit rocked the vessel. A warning klaxon sounded, and emergency force fields sprang to life around them. "Hull breach in Section 4!" a voice announced over the intercom. "Emergency containment protocols engaged." As they worked to repair the cloaking device, Marcus couldn't help but be acutely aware of Xena's proximity. The memory of their earlier encounter flashed through his mind, and he felt a surge of heat that had nothing to do with the battle raging around them. Xena seemed to sense his distraction. She leaned in close, her breath hot against his ear. "Focus, Marcus. We need to get this working." Her words snapped him back to reality, and he redoubled his efforts. They worked in tandem, their movements in perfect sync as they rerouted power and replaced damaged components. Just as they were making progress, a violent tremor shook the ship. The force field near them flickered ominously, and the sound of tearing metal echoed through the chamber. "We're running out of time," Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. Xena nodded, her skin beginning to glow with a soft bioluminescence. Marcus remembered what she had told him about Romulan physiology and heightened arousal during danger. The sight was captivating, but he forced himself to concentrate on the task at hand. As they made the final adjustments, their eyes met. In that moment, the tension between them became unbearable. Without thinking, Marcus leaned in and kissed her fiercely. Xena responded with equal passion, their bodies pressing together in the cramped space. For a few precious seconds, the battle faded away. Then, with a shared look of understanding, they broke apart and turned back to the cloaking device. "It's done," Marcus announced, his breath coming in short gasps. Before they could celebrate their success, a new alarm blared through the ship. The sound of weapons fire echoed from a nearby corridor. "Intruder alert," the computer announced. "Kzinti boarding party detected in Section 3. Marcus and Xena exchanged a grim look. They had repaired the cloaking device, but now they faced a new threat. As the sounds of combat drew closer, they prepared themselves for the fight of their lives against the ferocious Kzinti warriors. As the sounds of combat drew closer, Marcus and Xena exchanged a determined look. They had repaired the cloaking device, but now faced a new threat. The Kzinti boarding party was advancing rapidly, and they needed to act fast. "We need to get back to the bridge," Marcus said, his mind racing. "I have an idea that might turn this battle around." Xena nodded, her skin still glowing softly in the dimly lit engineering section. They made their way through the chaotic corridors, dodging debris and helping injured crew members along the way. Upon reaching the bridge, they found Admiral Vox coordinating the defense against the Kzinti boarders. The situation looked grim, with the enemy fleet still bearing down on them and intruders threatening to overwhelm the ship from within. "Admiral," Marcus called out, breathing heavily from their sprint. "I have a plan that might give us the advantage we need." Vox turned, his expression a mix of skepticism and desperation. "Speak quickly, human. We're running out of options." Marcus stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display of the battlefield. "We can use the cloaking technology to create the illusion of a larger Romulan fleet. If we project multiple false images of our ships, we can make it appear as if a massive armada has arrived to reinforce our position." Xena's eyes widened in understanding. "The Kzinti won't be able to distinguish between the real ships and the projections. It could buy us the time we need to mount a counterattack." Vox considered the proposal for a moment before nodding sharply. "Do it. We have nothing to lose at this point." Marcus and Xena set to work immediately, their fingers flying over the holographic controls. They programmed the cloaking devices to project false images of Romulan warships, carefully positioning them to create the illusion of a vast fleet emerging from subspace. As the false images flickered into existence on the display, the effect was immediate. The Kzinti dreadnought, previously pressing its advantage, suddenly halted its advance. The entire enemy fleet seemed to hesitate, clearly thrown off by the sudden appearance of reinforcements. "It's working," Xena breathed, her eyes fixed on the display. Admiral Vox wasted no time capitalizing on the enemy's confusion. "All ships, focus fire on the Kzinti dreadnought," he ordered. "Target their key systems." Marcus stepped forward, his diplomatic preparation proving invaluable. "Sir, I've studied Kzinti ship designs. Their power distribution nodes are vulnerable near the aft section. If we concentrate our attacks there, we can cripple their main weapons and propulsion systems." Vox nodded, relaying the information to the fleet. The Romulan ships moved into formation, their weapons blazing as they targeted the weak points Marcus had identified. The battle raged on, with the Romulans pressing their advantage. However, the Kzinti were not easily defeated. A powerful counterattack struck the Romulan flagship, causing massive damage. The ship shuddered violently, and suddenly Marcus felt his feet leave the floor. "Artificial gravity failure!" a crew member shouted as chaos erupted on the bridge. Marcus found himself floating uncontrollably, colliding with consoles and other crew members. He caught sight of Xena, her luminescent skin making her easy to spot in the darkness. They reached for each other, managing to grasp hands just as another impact sent them tumbling into a maintenance shaft. The narrow space forced them close together, their bodies pressed against one another in the zero-gravity environment. Marcus could feel the heat radiating from Xena's skin, her bioluminescence pulsing more intensely than before. Their eyes met, and for a moment the battle raging around them seemed to fade away. Without thinking, Marcus leaned in, his lips meeting Xena's in a passionate kiss. She responded eagerly, her hands tangling in his hair as they floated in the cramped shaft. The intimate moment was shattered by the sound of Admiral Vox's voice over the ship's comm system. "All hands to battle stations. The Kzinti have seen through our deception and are regrouping for a final assault. This is our last chance to turn the tide." Marcus and Xena broke apart, breathing heavily. They shared a look of understanding. Their personal feelings would have to wait. Right now, they had a battle to win. As they made their way back to the bridge, Marcus couldn't help but notice the intensity of Xena's bioluminescence. Her skin was pulsing with a mesmerizing glow, far brighter than he had seen before. "Your light," he said, gesturing to her glowing skin. "It's much stronger now." Xena nodded, a hint of embarrassment in her voice. "It's a sign of extreme arousal in Romulan females. The danger, combined with our moment, has intensified the effect." Marcus's mind began to race, an idea forming. "Wait, could we use this somehow, as a weapon or distraction against the Kzinti?" They reached the bridge just as Xena was about to respond. The scene before them was one of controlled chaos, with crew members frantically working to keep the damaged ship operational. Admiral Vox turned to them, his expression grim. "The Kzinti are preparing for their final push. If you have any more tricks up your sleeve, now is the time." Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Sir, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our best chance." As Marcus began to outline his daring plan, the Kzinti fleet loomed ever closer on the interface. The fate of the Romulan ship, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance. Balance. The fate of the Romulan ship, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance. As Marcus began to outline his daring plan, a violent tremor shook the ship. Warning lights flashed across the bridge consoles, and a computerized voice announced, "Critical failure in life support systems. Oxygen levels depleting rapidly." Admiral Vox's face paled. "We're losing atmosphere. If we don't restore life support soon, we'll suffocate before the Kzinti can finish us off." Marcus's mind raced, quickly adapting his strategy to this new threat. "Sir, we need to seal off the undamaged sections of the ship immediately. It'll buy us time to fix life support." Vox nodded sharply. "Make it so. You and Xena, take a team to engineering. We need those systems back online now." Marcus and Xena sprinted from the bridge, gathering a small group of Romulan engineers as they made their way through the rapidly deteriorating ship. Emergency force fields flickered, struggling to maintain hull integrity as the oxygen grew thinner. As they reached engineering, Marcus felt his lungs burning, each breath becoming a struggle. He glanced at Xena, noticing her skin's bioluminescence pulsing erratically, a clear sign of distress. "We need to work fast," he gasped, moving to the main control panel. "The ship's systems are failing faster than I anticipated." Xena nodded, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "Our primary power couplings are completely fried. We can't restore life support without them." Marcus studied the complex Romulan technology, his diplomatic training in xenoengineering kicking in. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Wait, I think I see a compatibility between human and Romulan neural interfaces. If I can connect directly to the ship's mainframe, I might be able to jumpstart the system using my own neural patterns." Xena's eyes widened. "That's incredibly dangerous, Marcus. The strain could kill you." "We don't have a choice," Marcus replied, already preparing the neural link. "It's this, or we all die." With Xena's reluctant assistance, Marcus connected himself to the ship's computer. The moment the link was established, he felt a jolt of alien consciousness flood his mind. Romulan data streams intertwined with his thoughts, creating a dizzying fusion of human and alien perception. Marcus pushed through the disorientation, focusing on the task at hand. He visualized the ship's systems, using his newfound connection to redirect power and repair damaged pathways. As he worked, he felt a surge of energy coursing through the ship. Suddenly, the life support systems sputtered back to life. Fresh oxygen began to flood the sealed compartments, and the ship's defensive shields strengthened. Marcus's connection had not only restored critical systems, but also enhanced them beyond their original capabilities. Xena monitored his vital signs, her bioluminescence now pulsing with a mixture of concern and admiration. "Marcus, you've done it, but your neural patterns are becoming erratic. We need to disconnect you before—" Her words were cut short as Marcus collapsed, the strain of interfacing with the alien technology finally overwhelming him. Xena caught him as he fell, cradling his unconscious form. On the bridge, Admiral Vox felt the ship come alive beneath his feet. "Status report," he barked. "Sir, life support is back online, and our defensive capabilities have increased by 200%, a junior officer reported, awe evident in his voice. "The human, he's done the impossible." Vox's expression hardened with perseverance. "Then let's not waste this opportunity. All ships concentrate fire on the Kzinti flagship. This ends now." The reinvigorated Romulan fleet launched a coordinated assault, their weapons now supercharged by the enhancements Marcus had inadvertently made. The Kzinti formation, caught off guard by the sudden resurgence of their seemingly defeated foe, began to crumble under the onslaught. Back in engineering, Xena focused intently on Marcus's still form. She placed her hands on his temples, her skin glowing more brightly than ever before. Using her own bioluminescent abilities, she attempted to stimulate his neural pathways, guiding his consciousness back from the brink. "Come back to me, Marcus," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We've won. You've saved us all." Slowly, Marcus's eyes fluttered open. He gazed up at Xena, a weak smile forming on his lips. "Did it work?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Before Xena could respond, Admiral Vox's voice boomed over the ship's communication system. "Victory is ours. The Kzinti fleet is in full retreat. All hands stand down from battle stations." A cheer erupted throughout the ship, the sound of relief and triumph echoing through the corridors. Xena helped Marcus to his feet, supporting him as they made their way back to the bridge. As they entered, the entire bridge crew turned to face them. Admiral Vox stepped forward, his usually stern face now bearing an expression of grudging respect. "Marcus of Earth," he began, his voice carrying the weight of official proclamation, "your actions today have saved not only this ship, but perhaps all of Romulus. The High Council will hear of your bravery and ingenuity." Marcus nodded weakly, still leaning heavily on Xena. "Thank you, Admiral. I only did what was necessary." Vox's eyes narrowed slightly. "Perhaps, but your ability to interface with our technology is unprecedented. The Council will have many questions." As the implications of the day's events began to sink in, Marcus realized that his mission had taken an unexpected turn. The battle was over, but a new chapter in human-Romulan relations was just beginning. Xena squeezed his hand gently, her skin still glowing softly. "Rest now," she said quietly. "There will be time for diplomacy later." As Marcus allowed himself to be led to the medical bay, his mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. The connection he had experienced with the Romulan ship had opened up new avenues of understanding, ones that could reshape the future of both their species. But for now, as the adrenaline of battle faded and exhaustion set in, Marcus focused on the warmth of Xena's hand in his. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he wouldn't face them alone. Alone, the days following the battle blurred together as Marcus recovered in the medical bay. Xena visited often, her presence a comforting constant amidst the flurry of medical scans and debriefings. As his strength returned, so did the realization of the monumental shift in human-Romulan relations. Weeks passed, and Marcus found himself standing beside Xena in the Grand Hall of Unity on Romulus. The air thrummed with anticipation as dignitaries from Earth and Romulus gathered for the formal alliance ceremony. Marcus straightened his dress uniform, acutely aware of the billions watching the broadcast across both planets. Admiral Vox stepped forward, his voice resonating through the hall. Today, we forge a bond between our peoples, a testament to the strength found in unity. As the ceremony progressed, Marcus's gaze kept drifting to Xena. Her luminescent skin seemed to pulse with hardly restrained excitement, and he found himself captivated by the play of light across her features. Their eyes met, a silent exchange passing between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. The signing of the treaty was met with thunderous applause, marking the dawn of a new era. In the following days, plans for a joint human-Romulan space exploration initiative rapidly took shape. Dubbed Stellar Bonds, the project aimed to push the boundaries of known space. Marcus's comm unit chimed, displaying a message from Earth's diplomatic corps. He'd been appointed as the human liaison for Stellar Bonds. His pulse quickened as he read further. Xena would be leading the Romulan contingent. Their first mission briefing took place in a sleek Romulan conference room. Marcus entered to find Xena already there, poring over star charts. She looked up, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I hear we'll be working closely together," she said, her voice carrying a hint of something more than professional interest. Marcus nodded, moving to stand beside her. "A newly discovered star system with potential for colonization. Sounds like quite the adventure." As they leaned over the charts, their arms brushed. Marcus felt a jolt of electricity at the contact, and Xena's skin flared brightly for a moment. They both stepped back, a mix of embarrassment and anticipation hanging in the air. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Marcus and Xena found themselves spending increasing amounts of time together, ostensibly for mission planning. Late nights poring over data turned into shared meals and long conversations about their respective cultures. One evening, as they worked in Xena's quarters, Marcus found himself distracted by the pulsing glow of her skin. "Your bioluminescence," he began, hesitating. "Does it always react so intensely?" Xena met his gaze, her eyes dark with unspoken desire. "Only in certain situations," she replied, her voice low. The tension between them was palpable, but before either could act, a chime signaled the completion of their pre-launch checks. The moment passed, leaving them both breathless with anticipation. The day of departure arrived. The USS Harmony, a marvel of combined human and Romulan engineering, stood ready in the space dock. Marcus and Xena took their positions in the ship's command center, their movements in perfect sync as they prepared for launch. As the Harmony broke free of Romulus's gravity well, Marcus felt a surge of excitement. He glanced at Xena, seeing his own exhilaration mirrored in her eyes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The ship's engines hummed to life, propelling them towards the unknown. Stars streaked past the viewports as the Harmony entered warp, carrying its crew of humans and Romulans into a new chapter of galactic exploration. Late one night, several weeks into their journey, Marcus found himself outside Xena's quarters. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the door chime. They were scheduled to review the latest long-range scans, but the late hour and the privacy of her personal space added a charged atmosphere to the meeting. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the chime. The door slid open, revealing Xena in more casual attire than her usual uniform. The soft lighting of her quarters made her skin shimmer, casting a gentle glow throughout the room. "Come in," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I've just pulled up the star charts." Marcus stepped inside, the door closing behind him with a soft hiss. As they bent over the holographic display, the familiar dance of professional collaboration began. But this time, something was different. Each accidental touch lingered a moment longer. Each shared glance held more meaning. As they discussed a particularly promising solar system, Marcus reached out to zoom in on a planet. His hand brushed against Xena's, and suddenly the star charts were forgotten. They turned to face each other, the air between them electric with unspoken desire. Xena's skin pulsed brightly, her breathing quickening. Marcus felt his heart racing as he leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force. Their lips met in a kiss that was at once foreign and achingly familiar. The sensation of her luminescent skin against his sent shivers down his spine. As the kiss deepened, Marcus marveled at the alien yet intoxicating taste of her. Xena's hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. They moved together, exploring the fascinating differences in their physiologies with mounting passion. Just as things were heating up, a shrill alarm cut through the air. They broke apart, breathing heavily, as the ship's computer announced, "Incoming distress signal detected. All senior staff report to the command center immediately." Marcus and Xena shared a look of frustration and concern. Duty called, and they both knew they had to answer. Quickly straightening their uniforms, they hurried out of Xena's quarters and towards the command center, their personal desires pushed aside for now. As they entered the bustling command center, Admiral Vox turned to them, his expression grave. "We've received a distress call from a nearby planet," he announced. "Prepare for emergency protocols. We're about to face our first true test as an alliance." Marcus and Xena exchanged a determined glance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as partners, as representatives of their alliance, and as something more that they had only begun to explore. As the USS Harmony continued its mission, Marcus and Xena's relationship deepened, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Their shared experiences, both on and off duty, had forged a connection that transcended their species' differences. Months into their journey, the ship received orders to return to Romulus for a diplomatic summit. The news sparked a mix of excitement and apprehension among the crew, but for Marcus and Xena, it presented an opportunity they had been secretly discussing for weeks. As the Harmony docked at the Romulan capital, Marcus and Xena stood hand in hand on the observation deck, watching the sprawling cityscape come into view. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Xena's skin pulsed with a warm glow, her fingers tightening around his. "More than ready," she replied, her eyes meeting his with unwavering certainty. The following day, as dignitaries from Earth and Romulus gathered for the summit's opening ceremony, Marcus and Xena stepped forward. Admiral Vox, who had been briefed on their intentions, nodded solemnly. "Honored representatives," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Xena and I have an announcement to make." A hush fell over the assembly as Marcus continued. "We intend to formalize our relationship through a human-Romulan bonding ceremony." The room erupted into a cacophony of whispers and exclamations. Some faces lit up with excitement, while others darkened with concern. The implications of such a union were far-reaching, and the announcement sent shockwaves through both delegations. In the days that followed, Marcus and Xena found themselves at the center of a political and cultural storm. Media outlets on both planets buzzed with speculation and debate, while many hailed their decision as a beacon of hope for interspecies relations. Others voiced concerns about genetic compatibility and cultural preservation. Despite the controversy, preparations for the ceremony moved forward. Marcus and Xena worked tirelessly with cultural experts from both worlds to create a ritual that honored both human and Romulan traditions. On the day of the ceremony, the Grand Hall of Unity was adorned with a blend of Terran and Romulan decor. Delegates from both worlds filled the seats, their colorful attire a visual representation of the diversity present. As Marcus took his place at the front of the hall, his heart raced with anticipation. The sound of traditional Romulan chimes signaled Xena's entrance. She appeared at the far end of the aisle, her luminescent skin pulsing with a soft, ethereal light that seemed to illuminate the entire room. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the world faded away. Xena began her walk towards Marcus, each step bringing them closer to a future they would forge together. Suddenly, a series of explosions rocked the building. Screams filled the air as smoke billowed from multiple points around the hall. Chaos erupted as security forces rushed to engage a group of armed assailants who had materialized amidst the panicked crowd. Without hesitation, Marcus and Xena sprang into action. Despite their ceremonial attire, they moved with the precision of seasoned officers. Marcus tackled an attacker who had taken aim at a group of Earth diplomats, while Xena used her superior strength to disarm another. Working in perfect synchronization, they fought their way through the melee. Marcus's quick thinking complemented Xena's physical prowess, their movements so coordinated it was as if they shared a single mind. As they subdued a particularly aggressive assailant, Marcus caught sight of a masked figure aiming an energy weapon at Xena's back. "Xena, watch out!" he shouted, lunging towards her. Xena turned, her eyes widening as she saw the imminent threat. In a split-second decision, she pushed Marcus aside, taking the full brunt of the energy blast. Her body convulsed as the energy coursed through her, her bioluminescence flaring erratically. Marcus caught her as she fell, his mind racing. Drawing on the intimate knowledge of Romulan physiology he had gained during their time together, he realized there was a way he could help. Cradling Xena in his arms, Marcus gently placed his fingers on specific points along her neck and spine. With precise, tender movements, he began to stimulate the nerve clusters he knew were key to the Romulan healing response. As the battle raged around them, Marcus remained focused on Xena. Gradually, her erratic bioluminescence began to stabilize, pulsing in rhythm with Marcus's own elevated heartbeat. Her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with a mix of gratitude and love. The intimate moment of healing, witnessed by officials from both worlds, became a powerful symbol of the deep connection possible between humans and Romulans. With renewed strength, Xena rose to her feet. Together, she and Marcus rejoined the fight, their actions now infused with an even greater sense of purpose. Their seamless cooperation and mutual protection demonstrated the strength of their bond and the potential of human-Romulan unity. As the security forces finally gained the upper hand, the last of the attackers were subdued. The hall, once a scene of chaos, fell into an eerie silence broken only by the sound of emergency responders tending to the injured. Amid the aftermath, Marcus and Xena stood united, their hands clasped tightly together. They exchanged a look of commitment, silently agreeing that this attack would not deter them from their path. Admiral Vox approached, his uniform singed but his bearing as commanding as ever. "The ceremony," he began, his voice gruff with emotion. "Do you wish to postpone?" Marcus and Xena turned to face the gathered dignitaries, many of whom were still visibly shaken by the attack. Xena's voice rang out, clear and resolute. "We will continue. Our union is more important now than ever." With a nod from Admiral Vox, the remaining officials reassembled. As Marcus and Xena took their places once more, a sense of defiance and hope filled the air. Their bonding ceremony, now imbued with added significance, was about to become a turning point in human-Romulan relations.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.